All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of Trauma Saved My Life, where we talk to warriors who have turned their wounds into wisdom. Today's guest is Michael Reid Cramer. He's a cancer fighter, a mental health advocate and speaker, and a social media creator who's showing us what it really means to fight while you're still in the fire. So Michael's faced cancer, GVHD, depression, anxiety, and even hit rock bottom with a very unfortunate suicide attempt. But from that darkness, he's created some light. It's a platform, a message, and most of all, a movement. He's living proof that you don't need to be in remission to reclaim your mission. So let's welcome Michael now. What's up, man?
Thank you, man. Thank you so much for having me, dude. What an
No
amazing
problem.
intro. I'm so grateful to be here. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I've been following you for a while. Obviously, you've been going through some stuff a lot longer than I've even known of your story. But just the stuff that I've seen, it's really amazing, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you about all that stuff. So thank
Thank
you
you,
for
man. I
coming.
appreciate it.
Yeah, no
Of course.
problem. So really, just to start, let's kind of take it back a little bit and kind of talk a little bit about like your upbringing. Can you share a little bit about your childhood and what life was like growing up a little bit?
Yeah, so actually I was born in France, but grew up
Oh,
here in Miami. We moved to Miami when I was 2 years old. We went from France to Montreal because my dad, he was a sound engineer and
mm-hmm.
he had some people he was working with here in Miami. So we moved to Miami. I grew up here. I was very active growing up. I love the water. We live in Miami Beach. Grew up in Miami Beach, Florida. So I was always by the water. I love the beach. And when I was about 12 or 11 years old, I started sailing
Oh, wow.
and then I started doing windsurfing competitively, actually. So my high school years, from the time I was 14 till I was, since like basically before my diagnosis, I was
Mhm.
windsurfing on the Olympic development team. We were traveling the world doing competitions. It was a really amazing life that I had growing up. I was so blessed to have these opportunities to travel, to compete, to be an athlete growing up, and to be surrounded by people who were just so willing and so amazing. So it was a great upbringing I had. I love the water. You couldn't get
Yeah.
me out of the water, and that was the hardest thing about being diagnosed with cancer was I couldn't be in the water for like it was like 4 years or I was out of the water.
Oh, wow. Wow. So you kind of felt like a fish out of water, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was tough.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's really tough. I mean, the upbringing sounds amazing. A bunch of stuff that I've never even considered doing for one, but it looks
Yeah,
awesome. It looks amazing. Um, yeah, maybe one day I'll try windsurfing. We'll see. I don't know. I'm right here by the beach. I'm like literally a couple of blocks out here in Long Beach. We don't have a
you're in.
lot of waves or anything, but we have Huntington Beach and we have Redondo Beach. Like we have a couple of good ones.
Or you guys have spots for surfing and stuff there.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great
yeah,
place to be, man. That's awesome.
yeah. I've tried surfing before. It's not my thing, but maybe
It takes
someday.
time to get good at it. It takes time.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you. Um, well, I kind of know a little bit because I've seen your page, but let's share with the audience. Do you know anyone who battled a serious illness or any adversity while you were growing up?
So when I was growing up, my father passed away from cancer, actually. So not the same cancer I had, but
Hmm.
a form of lymphoma that was actually, which is crazy because his lymphoma was actually a lot less aggressive than mine, and he passed away. And mine was like I had a very slim chance to survive, and he basically had an 80% chance to survive. I had like a 15% chance to survive, and somehow he passed away. But I always like say that he gave me his strength when he passed away for me to survive this disease. So 4 years after his diagnosis was when I was like 4 years after he passed away was when I was diagnosed.
Wow. Yeah, that I'm sure
Yeah.
that was tough. Um, what kind of lymphoma did he have?
He had large B cell lymphoma.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's I mean, I actually had lymphoma myself. Mine was the
Yeah.
gray zone lymphoma. So it's kind of a combination of the Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's that they call it.
Okay.
Like it's in the gray zone, it's kind of in the middle. So it showed characteristics of
So how are
both.
you doing now? Are you okay now? All
I'm
good?
good now. Yeah, it's been actually next year will be 10 years in remission for me. So I'm looking forward
Amazing.
to that big milestone. Yeah. I mean that
That's great.
and that's what all this has really been about is just, this has been my catalyst. I wasn't living the healthiest life back then. I wasn't,
Hmm.
in the best health. So that was kind of like a wake up call for me that kind of was my catalyst to do better in life. And ever since then, just appreciating all the small things and really just taking care of my health. So, I mean, I see
Yeah.
you're kind of on that same track as well. I mean, you were already pretty healthy. You're,
Yeah.
an athlete and everything. So,
Yeah. It just happened. It just happened. We don't know why it happened sometimes,
right,
no one really
right.
has the answers to it. It's just a
Hmm.
crazy thing where just cells go crazy and there's a few theories here and there that I had mono about a year before my diagnosis, and maybe the mono cells just like kept replicating, and my body was
Hmm.
fighting the mono, and that's how I got cancer. There
Yeah,
are a few theories out there, but we'll never
yeah,
really. Yeah,
yeah. It's interesting to think about those things. Same with mine, where my oncologist said, there was really nothing you did or
yeah,
could have, done to prevent the diagnosis. Although, of course, like you said, there's theories and other
there's
environmental
theories,
triggers or whatever there may be. It's hard to
right? Of
pinpoint.
course.
So, yeah. Well, I want to know what values or lessons from childhood do you have that kind of still shaped you today?
I think some of the values and lessons that I took was that like growing up, I had a lot of like fears. Like I was always scared of certain things, and I wouldn't say the lessons I took from them, but I realized after I went through cancer that I don't have to be afraid of things anymore. I had so much anxiety, and it kind of I lived my life with some regrets
Mm-hmm.
before my diagnosis, and there was things I wish I took more advantage of, like my health. Like yes, I did do this windsurfing and do all these amazing things, but I felt like I could have taken the sport more seriously, and I could have done more with my health when I had it. That now I
Mm-hmm.
realize how much of a gift that health is and how
Mm-hmm.
lucky I was to do all those things. But I think, you know, the things I've learned and taken from my childhood is that like health is the biggest gift in the world, because without it, you really can't do anything. And
Right.
we take it for granted. Like I have a lot of the majority of my friends here are pretty healthy, and I see them living their life and they do fun stuff, but I don't feel like they have the same perspective as me where they really push themselves to their limits and do everything they can, you know.
Right.
You really
Yeah.
don't know what you have until it's taken from you.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Exactly right. That's one of the blessings and the curses of a serious illness like this, where it's like you get that true perspective of the
Right.
importance of life. What the things that really matter, not all the material things, not all the things that people are chasing. The ego satisfiers. It's not
Right.
about that. It's really just your loved ones, your small group of loved ones. We all have this big circle of friends and companions and associates, but when you go through something like this, you realize how small that circle really is, of people that
Right.
really care about you and people that you should be there for as well. um
100%.
yeah. It's just amazing to have that perspective. How old are you right now?
I just turned 24 like last
Okay,
week.
yeah, so
So
yeah,
yeah.
still pretty young, right?
Yeah, I
um
feel old. You know, I had a total knee replacement, so you know, I have all this issues with my body. So I always tell people like I'm in like my 60s, you know.
yeah,
That's
well,
what
you
I
got a
feel
lot
like.
of mileage. That's what it is. Like a new
I got
car
a
with a
lot of
bunch of
mileage on
mileage.
my body, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, fortunately, unfortunately, you have definitely gone through a lot, but it seems like you have built a lot of strength and resilience through the experiences that you've had. A lot of people um, would go through something like this and kind of allow it to defeat them or allow it to break them down, where it feels like, like you said, you were already pretty healthy before, but
Right.
mentally, your strength is like it's it's not even something that you can put into words. Like most people wouldn't understand the strength that it takes to go through what you're going through right now and to still be positive and to still to share it with people and be transparent and things like that. So, um, yeah, you might be young in age, but you got the experience, you got the mileage, and
Hmm.
when you do survive this, you're gonna have so much more life to be able to take all these lessons and apply them. Where it's some people
Right.
might not learn until their 60s or 70s what life is really
Right.
all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's just it's when you go through something like this, you're not gonna you have just have a different perspective than other people, and it really has changed the way I look at life. You know, I'm in the hospital twice a week now getting this treatment. I'm just like, oh, this
Hmm.
sucks, but at the same time, you know, it's a blessing to even get treatment. You know, I hear a lot of stories about travel nurses who go to other countries and the patients have to pay directly for treatment. They can't afford it and they die. And
Hmm.
a lot of times we our healthcare system sucks, honestly, but it's like we get
Yeah.
treatment, right? We get the treatment, even though it's expensive, we
Hmm.
still get it. So, you know, in a lot of ways, it is having that perspective does help a lot, because treatment is a blessing. Going to the hospital is a blessing, even though no one wants to go, but it really is a
Right.
blessing to be taken care of.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's definitely, a lot of people don't like to hear it, but there's a lot worse situations that could be going on, and based on, like you
Yeah,
said, location or financial, situations or whatever. It might be expensive. I'm still paying some of my bills now, almost 10 years
yeah, of
later.
course.
So it's like, you might be paying for a while, but at least you have the life to live. To be able to experience those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I want to move on a little bit to your diagnosis. Can you tell me about when you were diagnosed and kind of what changed in your world during that time.
Yeah, so when I was diagnosed, I mean, leading up to my diagnosis, I was really fatigued. It was the COVID lockdown during 2020. It was around like March when everything really shut down, I think end of February maybe. And here in Miami, the beaches were closed, gyms were closed, schools were closed, everything was closed. And for the first few months, just March, April, and May, I was just kind of tired, like nothing really bad, but I felt fatigued. And I was like, all right, I'm fatigued because I can't see my friends. I can't go out. I can't be active like I used to. I'm not in school right now. I'm not really doing anything. So that's what I blamed it on. But then when it came to like June and July, I started to realize like I had a lot of night sweats.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to lose weight. I noticed I lost like 15 pounds, but I kind of attributed that to not being in the gym because I was working out at home. I was like, oh, it's not the same. So I'm not eating as much.
Mm-hmm.
And then when early July came, I realized like I didn't feel good at all. Like I was just so fatigued. Like it was hard to get out of bed. I had night sweats every morning. I was losing weight. I didn't feel like myself. I was seeing stars when I walked. And that's when we went to the doctor and I did some blood work. And then basically a few days after the blood work, it was our family pediatrician because I was 19 at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
she called my mom and I and she was like, well, the blood work isn't like, she didn't really say it was bad or good. She just said she wanted us to see a specialist that she knew so he could take a look at my blood. Because honestly, we thought I was anemic. That's the first thing I thought of because I Googled my symptoms and it led to anemia. I had basically the symptoms of anemia because I was anemic from the cancer actually.
Mm-hmm.
And when I found out, when we went to the doctor and I did the blood work, obviously I was anemic. And then the doctor was like, we want to do a test called a bone marrow biopsy. And even then, I wasn't thinking cancer. I don't know why. I just was like, all right, it's a bone marrow biopsy. They're going to test my bone marrow and see what's wrong with my blood. And then I remember waking up from the procedure because I was put under anesthesia for it. And basically, the doctor walks in, he tells me I have leukemia or lymphoma. And then I was being taken to the sixth floor of the hospital. I had a port placed in my chest, and we spent the next week in the hospital with no official diagnosis. Went home. We were in and out of the hospital for the next 2 weeks. And on August 3rd of 2020, they told me I had hepatosplenic T cell lymphoma, which is a really rare and aggressive form of lymphoma that affects the liver and the spleen. And I mean, they didn't tell me I had a 15% chance to survive because they didn't tell me any of that. But I found that out like 6 months later after I Googled it. And they just told me they were going to do the best they could to keep me alive. And I went through chemotherapy, radiation, and a bone marrow transplant. And then after the bone marrow transplant, I ended up with the disease that I live with now, which is graft versus host disease. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been a journey, but thankfully my cancer is actually in remission. It's just the GVHD, which is a complication of the cancer, has basically become like a secondary disease that affects my life so much, like basically like a
Mm-hmm.
second cancer, because now I'm in
Yeah.
a clinical trial for this new blood disease. So
Is
it's
it
been,
okay?
yeah,
Sorry. Oh, I was
yeah,
going to say, is it actually cancer or is the lymphoma is in remission? So the GVHD, it's
yeah.
not a cancer, right? It's
No,
just
it's
a,
not a cancer. The lymphoma
okay.
has been in remission for a few years now. The issue is the GVHD, which is a blood disease, and
Mm-hmm.
basically with the GVHD, it affects your major organs. It's like because I had a bone marrow transplant, and you get these stem cells from a donor, and I got these stem cells from an anonymous donor. And basically, what those stem cells do is they look at my body and they're like, okay, this body is foreign. It's not the old body I was in. So it starts attacking your major organs. Like it attacked my liver, my gut, my mouth, my skin, and my GI. So I'm still dealing with that nearly 5 years since the transplant. 5 years since the transplant in October. So it's
Wow.
been a long journey, and GVHC could be extremely life threatening. I almost died from it several times because of how bad it got.
Yeah. Man, that's terrible. I never heard of GVHD until I started hearing about your story and following along with that. So I'm glad you're able to enlighten me, and hopefully other people that will see this will kind of be enlightened on
Yeah,
some of those things that can happen. And that's really what this is all about, kind of being transparent and letting people know what what they can deal with. Like you said, being 24 years old, or you were even younger at the time, and being healthy, and it's almost, I hate to call it a lottery, but it's kind of just like luck of the draw. It could happen to anybody,
right,
anytime. It doesn't
right.
matter what kind of life you're living. Um, so with the GVHD, obviously it's a huge physical challenge, but how has it affected your day-to-day life?
Yeah, it affects my day-to-day life in so many ways. It's like one of the things I deal with is I can't get a lot of sun. I have to be really, really careful with the sun. So normal, like when I was healthy, I could just go to the beach and sit there all day, be in the sun. It was fine. But now I have to be really careful when I go outside or go anywhere. I have to wear a lot of like long sleeves and sunscreen, and that's changed my life a lot because like I'm a surfer. I can still surf, but when I surf, it has to be like 6 a.m. or like 6 p.m. So I just have to be really
Hmm.
careful with that stuff. And the GVHD it gives me a lot of fatigue. Like I have a lot of fatigue I didn't used to have, like chronic fatigue. But I still push through even though I get really tired. And because of GVHD, I'm constantly bound to like the hospital. I'm there twice a week now for this treatment. And it's something I have to like watch out for with secondary cancers because the GVHD causes lots of inflammation in the organs it affects. And when you have inflammation, you have scarring. And when you have scarring, it leads to cancer. So I'm
Hmm.
always getting screened for secondary cancers, always on the lookout for my health, and always dealing with some sort of new symptom that just comes up. And this disease is pretty hard to manage, but it's nothing I can do. So I just continue on and push forward, and that's it. That's my life.
Right. Yeah, you're a soldier for sure, man. You're
Thanks,
going through
man.
a lot, and like you said, just even despite all that, or in spite of all that, you're still pushing forward. Um, this will probably be the hardest part of your life, and once you make it through this, I mean, the rest of your life is probably going to be
Yeah,
coasting, man. You're going to be on easy
yeah,
street after all this. So,
yeah.
um,
Well, I hope this treatment will helps. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I'm
yeah,
hoping so as well. I mean, I'm glad you're sharing the journey with us because
yeah,
again, it's very enlightening. I like seeing you. I mean, not seeing you in the hospital, but I like seeing you share your journey. So that
yeah,
people
yeah.
know what it's like.
Thank you. I
Um,
appreciate that.
the 2 days a week in the hospital. How long are you there on those 2 days?
So it's usually like 11 to 4, I would say.
Oh,
Like
okay, so it's a good chunk
yeah,
of the day.
yeah, it's about like 5 hours because the actual treatment itself is like 3 hours, but they have to prep the machine and they have to take the needles out of my port, put a bandage and all that stuff. So it ends up being like 5 hours or there. It's like a 30, 35, or 40-minute drive to the hospital. So it ends up being
Hmm.
like a basically like a whole day thing
I
whenever
see.
I go. So
Yeah.
it takes a
And
big portion
do you
of
have to
time.
prepare for that in any way? Like as far as diet wise, do you have to fast or anything like that? Or
No, thankfully not.
okay, yeah, that's
But I
good. Yeah.
but I do have to be careful after the treatment because I need to make sure I eat like potassium and all this stuff and have lots of fluids because it does take out your blood and then put it back. So after the treatment, you can get like dizzy and fatigue. So you have to just drink a lot of water and eat food because you could potentially pass out. So you have to be
Yeah.
careful with stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it sounds like they're keeping a pretty close eye on you and,
Yeah.
checking your organs and checking all that stuff. So that's definitely a good sign. It sounds like they know what they're doing at least.
Yeah, they do. My doctor is amazing. He's one of the best in the world with GVHD, actually.
Oh, that's
Just got
awesome.
lucky. Yeah, I got lucky with him.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I feel like I got lucky too with I mean my oncologist that I worked with directly, he had never actually treated gray zone lymphoma before.
really.
But uh he was able to refer my case and work hand in hand with the chief of oncology over at the UCLA Medical Center. So,
Oh,
and he
that's
had treated
awesome.
a few cases. So yeah, they were working as a team on my case. And I was lucky enough to have it done the first time, and hopefully never have to deal with it again. So yeah,
Yeah,
you dealing with such a good doctor, at least in that realm, is definitely a
right.
good look, good outlook for you.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'm glad you're still here, man. I've never
Yeah.
even heard of that lymphoma, so that's cool.
Yeah, I've never heard of your lymphoma either. I mean,
Yeah,
uh,
gray zone lymphoma, that's so crazy.
yeah, I don't know if that's the official name of it now. I know at the time when I got diagnosed, they said, like, they gave me a pamphlet and it didn't really even mention my cancer specifically. It was just kind of covering some lymphomas in general. And I think there was something like 25 cases known, like known cases in the
Oh my
country at
god.
the time. Yeah, it was super, super rare. Um,
Yeah, that's crazy. Because
but
yeah, mine was like 200 cases ever.
wow,
So,
yeah, so we're
yeah,
both on the rare side of things, huh?
yeah,
Um,
crazy.
Yeah, and but again, this is all for a better cause because as they worked with us and you continue to get work, it's gonna help other people that may get diagnosed with
Right,
these things in the future.
100%.
So yeah, it's
That's why I
really
want yeah, that's
yeah,
why I wanna do this
exactly.
clinical trial because I know this clinical trial is gonna help other people with my disease too, to
Right.
see if
Yeah,
it
and
works.
that's so admirable of you to even do that because I'd be scared as hell to be doing clinical trials to be honest. Like,
Yeah,
um,
but I mean, yeah, the clinical trial, it's a treatment I've done before. I would mix with a new one, so it's pretty safe. And honestly, clinical trials are the way to go because they're usually really good and they usually do help. So this
Yeah.
treatment worked for me in the past, so I think it'll work again. So that's why I was pretty confident going forward with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty optimistic. And plus, you know, a lot of people don't understand the having that mindset that you have, having that positive outlook, and just having that
Mhm.
mental strength and resilience can do so much for your physical body as well.
Right,
You
of
know, if
course,
you're not beating yourself up about it and feeling depressed and down, your body responds to the way that you think about things.
100%. I mean, that's why I say I survived the cancer because I went into it so strong. I was so built and so like strong physically. I was at the peak of my physical health, and I
Hmm.
think that muscle mass and that just strength I went into it with really kept my body from just like falling apart when I went through the chemo. I really think that it like is the reason why I survived was how I went into
Right.
the cancer.
Right. If you're going to wither away, you might as well have as much mass to wither away as
Yeah,
possible, right?
right. If I
Yeah.
was went into it skinny, I would have come out of it like not even able to walk. So
Right.
I just think about that all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's good that you were in the position that you were in. It's yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I hate to say lucky, but considering the circumstances, very lucky and grateful that you were in those positions.
Oh yeah, 100%. A lot of luck, always.
Um, so uh, you kind of talked openly about, facing your deep depression and even a suicide attempt. So I want to kind of touch on that a little bit. I don't know if
Mhm.
it's hard for you to talk about it or not, but in the spirit of helping other people, I kind of want to know what was your mindset at the lowest point.
Yeah, so my mindset at the lowest point was I had just gone through cancer. I got the cancer in remission, and then I ended up with this graft versus host disease. And right after getting the graft versus host disease, I was in the hospital for basically like a year and a half, in and out. And my mom and I, we were admitted for 5 straight months in the hospital without like going home, seeing any of my friends. And at this point, I was in social isolation for like 2 years. I hadn't really seen any of my friends because my immune system was so poor. And basically, I had a point where my liver was pretty much failing. I was like ready to go into hospice and ready to die because we tried every single medication for the GVHD because the liver GVHD was so bad and nothing was working and I was ready to just give up. And I was put on this medication, prednisone, steroids, and I was on an extremely high dose because it's one of the treatments for GVHD. And the dose was so high that for like 3 months, I was sleeping like an hour a night. I wasn't getting any rest. I just had constant panic attacks and anxiety. I was living in and out of the hospital. I couldn't see my friends. I could barely walk. I had no hopes of ever surfing again or being active because I found out I had necrosis in my elbows and knees.
Hmm.
So I kind of saw no hope. And I was like, what's the point? Even if I survive this, my life is going to suck. So I tried to take my own life. And then I hit that low point, and after I hit that low point, we were back admitted to the hospital. And somehow after hitting that low point, my liver started to heal. And something within me just like started to get better slowly and slowly, slowly. And I remember just realizing that the only way I was going to get through this was if I found something to be passionate about. And that the only way to get through depression, these dark times, is caring about something. At that point, I stopped caring because I was like, my life sucks. It's not going to get better. And I started to care about getting back into shape and starting sharing on social media and speaking and just being an advocate. And once I found all that passion and all that purpose throughout all these struggles, it gave me that will to live again because I realized
Hmm.
that all the suffering wasn't for nothing.
Hmm.
I realized I was going through all this suffering and all this pain, and at the time I didn't feel like it was worth it. But finding that purpose with the podcast, with social media, with speaking, with everything really made me continue on and kept me going.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's amazing. Actually, the last guest that I talked to, it was the same thing where it's like, those moments when you're thinking about yourself, sometimes it's harder to be strong for yourself, but when you have
Right,
other people around you or people that may go through it in the future, um, it somehow gives you strength. Like you think it, like for me, I thought about my mom or I thought about my kids, and
right,
that gave me the strength to continue. If it was just for me, I'm like, yeah, fuck this, I'm not doing this, like I
right.
don't want to go through this. But yeah, thinking about your loved ones, like for me, thinking about my kids and my mom and my grandma at my funeral and how sad they would be, how hard it
Right.
would be for them, that gave me strength to continue. So
Yeah, totally. I totally feel that.
yeah. So you mentioned like you were in the hospital, you got admitted to the hospital, and that was the moment that you kind of realized that you really wanted to live again, right? Or was it like a slow build up process?
I mean, it was a slow process. Like after the attempt, like I was admitted to the hospital. I wasn't admitted to like a psychiatric ward or anything. I was still in the cancer oncology floor. I had like
Hmm.
a one-to-one watching me, making sure I didn't hurt myself because that's like the protocol. I was there with my mom, and I had the therapist come in like 3 or 4 times a week to talk to me. I went through a lot of just talking about everything and just, people would visit me in the hospital. All the nurses and doctors really liked my mom and I. So people would just come and visit us and talk to us nonstop. And it kept me so distracted that I ended up finding joy again because I realized all these
Hmm.
people loved me and cared for me. And it just made me realize like, okay, like I have a purpose here. Like I'm gonna keep going. And they also took me off the steroids, which probably helped the most because the steroids were causing me not to sleep and to feel anxious. So
Yeah.
after the attempt, they took me off of them, and I was sleeping and I was eating better, and I started to feel like more like myself, and my liver got better. So it was just like a combination of all these things at the same time because everything was just going crashing down before I
Right.
broke down and tried to take my life. But after that, everything just came together, and I started advocating, started doing social media, and my life just became about helping others and sharing my story. And now it's great. Like I still have treatment, and it's tough, but I know what I'm doing with this, and it feels a lot better than it used to.
Right, you're chugging right along. Yeah, I know it's not easy, but you're
Yeah,
doing it. You know, you're living proof that it can be done, despite what you're going through. Like it's really really admirable.
yeah.
And
Thank
of
you.
course, you know everybody in the hospital, like you and your mom. You guys are freaking adorable. I watch you guys all
Yeah,
the
thank
time.
you.
Yeah, you guys have a really good energy about you. And she seems like a really great, supportive mother, and that's also a blessing to have someone like that in your corner as well.
Yeah, I know. I'm so lucky to have her. She's the reason I'm alive. All the time
Right.
she drove me to the ER during chemo when I was sick, or any of those nights where I was just constantly vomiting. Any of that stuff, she was always there. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be alive if she wasn't by my side.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand that completely, and I can say the same for mine because I can't say that if she sees this, she's gonna hate me. But I can't say that all the nurses and doctors liked her because she was raising hell in there. You know, she was tore up. Like I said, I think my mom
Yeah,
took my cancer diagnosis harder than anybody that was close to me. My mom and my grandmother, but my mom was there. You know, all the time. She, you know, every time. Like there was a time where. One of the nurses like tried to start me on the wrong pre-meds. You know how you do the pre-meds before you start the chemo and everything. And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
there's so much shit going on. Like I didn't remember all the medications, but she remembered all of them. She's like, no,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
this is wrong. And the nurse was arguing with her, and like come to find out, like it was the wrong medicine. They were really going to give me the
Dang,
wrong medicines at one time, and my mom was like so torn
on
up by
top of
that.
it.
Yeah, yeah, but she was on top of it to the point where
Yeah,
like we had this other nurse like to where she couldn't even cover my case anymore. They're like, no, she can't come to my room anymore. Like, she kind of got kicked out of off of my case, I guess.
damn.
So yeah, not to say that was the time that she saved my life, but just her support in general kind of helped me. There was even
Yeah,
a time where she came by my house to maybe drop something off or drop some food off in the morning one time, and I just kind of casually mentioned like, hey, yeah, my arm is kind of numb, like it feels weird. And she kind of looked at it. She's like, "No, your arm is very swollen compared to the other one. Like, you need to go to the doctor right now." And I'm so nonchalant about it. I'm like, I got work to do. I don't really feel like it, whatever. And I go to the doctor. They measure both of my arms, and then they go and do some scans, like ultrasound or whatever. And they find out that I have a blood clot. And I ended up having a blood clot in my jugular vein, where where the port, the little
yeah, 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 yeah.
cable goes into. I guess it created a blood
Yeah.
clot in my jugular, and that was something that if that shook loose and got in my lung, I could have
It'd be
passed
fatal.
within moments. Yeah, so that
Crazy.
was something I was totally gonna blow off, and the fact that she stopped by that morning and I could just casually mentioned it to her, like her knowing that that's a serious sign, really kind of saved my life in a way. So
Yeah,
both of us have a
that's
really
great.
good mother team going on here.
Yeah, we're lucky, man. Lucky.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess we kind of covered when you were kind of at your lowest point. But I also want to know when you were going through that rebuild process. You said it was kind of a slow process. I want to know what helped you kind of rebuild mentally and emotionally. After the suicide attempt and coming back from that and like you said, becoming a speaker and advocating and things like that.
Hmm.
So what
Yeah.
helped you rebuild?
What helped me rebuild was getting out of the hospital. Like that was the last time. It's been 3 years since then, and that was the last time I was ever admitted to the hospital for complications from GVHD. Like I go to the hospital, it's outpatient now, but that admission was like getting out of the hospital and going back to the world and being outside and spending time at home was one of the biggest ways I rebuilt, because I was going to the hospital still twice a week after it, like just going there, but not spending the night there. And we would go to the beach, my mom and I, like every night, and just sit by the water and look at the beach and just be calm. And it was great to just do normal stuff again. And that really was helped me build my emotions back up and made me just strong again, because when I was at the lowest point, I wasn't going to the beach. I wasn't living life. I was just in the hospital, getting surgeries, getting this happening, this complication, vomiting, being sick. And when I just got better a little bit and I could have a little more freedom, a little more leeway from the hospital, I just felt better. It was great to
Hmm.
just be home, relax, be with my family, be with my cats, go to the beach and just relax. That really helped a
Right.
lot.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love, just to point out to anybody that sees this, not mentioning having a bunch of money or driving the fanciest cars or having the nicest clothes. Those aren't the things that we miss, right? It's like you
Definitely not.
said, it's the cat, it's the beach, it's the going
Yeah.
to the grocery store, the basic things, right?
Yeah. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, just feeling like a normal human, member of society again, right?
Yeah, I actually remember when we got discharged from the hospital after that for the first time. We went home and we stopped at the grocery store on the way home. And I remember walking around the grocery store being like, this is so cool because I'm not in the hospital and there's like regular people. It's not like nurses.
Yeah,
So it was cool to be outside of the hospital, and it's a
yeah,
blessing to be
yeah,
outside of there.
exactly. Yeah, it's not exactly a prison, but it can feel something like a prison when you're not
Yeah,
allowed to
of
leave,
course.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
it does feel like that at sometimes, yes.
yeah, so same same experience. My chemo regimen was I was actually there for 5 to 6 days at a time. I was on a
Yeah,
24-hour drip, and it was supposed to be over the course of 5 days. But sometimes there would be delays and complications, which would lead it
yeah.
to a sixth day. But yeah, being there for almost a week at a time, every 2 weeks. So I definitely understand that.
Yeah, yeah. That's how mine was too when I first did chemo. Yeah, I was there like 6 days.
Yeah, that's crazy. Um, so moving on kind of to your online presence, you've really created a really powerful online presence. I'm curious, like, what actually made you want to start speaking out about these things?
Well, what made me want to start was initially my brother came to the hospital one time with me in like 2021 January when I just had my transplant, and we made some TikToks for fun. He was like, "I want to make a TikTok." My brother was doing TikTok for his gym stuff for fun, and we did one together. Us working out in the hospital, and then some Miami page like picked up the TikTok and reposted it, and then a Heat player, Giannis Haslam, saw it. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah, yeah,
UD
yeah,
saw
yeah.
it.
Miami Heat legend, right?
Yeah, yeah, he saw it,
Yeah,
and then we actually met him because he liked the story so much. Great guy.
no, that's
And
cool.
yeah, just seeing the impact that like one video had, it made me just start posting on TikTok back in 2021, sharing my story. And I really didn't start posting on Instagram consistently up until like the end of 2023. So it's really been like 2 years that I've been posting on Instagram consistently.
Wow.
And it's just been fun. Like I like it because I meet so many people, and being able to reach people and show a message of hope to others is so important, because when I was going through cancer, when I was at my lowest points, I didn't really know anyone who had been there. Like I met people in the hospital and people online here and there, but for me to share that what I've been through with other people, it felt like I had to do it. I felt like it'd be selfish if I didn't share what I learned. I feel
Yeah.
like that was why I went through it, was to show others that you can get through tough times and
Hmm.
recover from all this stuff.
Right, right. It feels almost like it's a calling, right? It just feels like
Yeah,
you
I was
said,
gonna
it's a
call it.
purpose.
Yeah, it's a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're doing a great job. I mean, I love, like I said, seeing your stories pop up. It's an unfortunate situation, of course, but just seeing how you're handling it, seeing your mindset and just, yeah, the awareness that's going out there. It's
Thank you.
invaluable to anybody that will eventually go through it or is currently going through it right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about how fitness plays a role in your healing?
Yeah, fitness is one of the biggest things in healing. A lot of cancer patients and cancer survivors often say that they have a lot of fatigue after cancer, and they have a lot of issues with just, they don't feel like themselves. And for me, I always say that, of course, you're going to have fatigue after cancer because you went through something that just took away all your muscle and all your strength. So you have to recover somehow. And you have to recover physically is huge. I think recovering physically from cancer it's just I mean, if you recover physically, you can recover mentally because I feel like it goes hand in hand, and
Hmm.
it's so important to be active when you're going through a chronic disease or something like cancer. I've even seen studies that show that people who are more active during cancer treatment have better survival rates. So it's been important since day one for me to exercise, and whether it's just going for a walk around the hospital, holding your IV pole, or lifting weights, whatever it is, just moving your body. It's
Hmm.
so good for you. You
Yep,
know,
that's one of the things that I advocate for as well.
yeah,
Um, you're as long as you keep it moving. Sometimes, of course, there's really hard days. There's days you don't feel like it,
right,
but
of
if you can
course.
will yourself to do that, your body's going to respond to that. It's um, like we talked about earlier, where some people might go through the cancer or chemo and be done with it, and then you just kind of sit around because you do feel tired, you do feel
Yeah, exactly.
exhausted and weak, but your body responds to that. It's like, oh, all we're going to do is sit here. So what do I need to get strong for, right? What do I need to heal for?
Exactly, right?
But if you're pushing it and you're doing things, your body is going to respond to that and say, "Oh, this human body wants to be active. This human body wants to be alive, and it's going to live. It's going to do its best to put yourself in a situation to take advantage of that."
Yeah, and being active helps with so many symptoms from cancer treatment. A lot of the fatigue, a lot of the nausea, a lot of the stomach issues, a lack of appetite can really be helped by just working out and moving your body. So when you sit there, your stomach, it's not going to settle. It's just going to be worse and worse and
Mm.
worse. So it's good to move
Yeah,
your body, get those juices flowing, get those endorphins flowing, and just it's going to make you a lot happier too. So it's so important.
absolutely. Yeah, and it gives you the confidence, right? Like you start to feel
Yeah,
good, just like
exactly.
like you said, it builds the mental up where you're like, "Now I feel like a stronger person," right?
Yeah, it goes hand in hand.
Hmm. Um, during the course of this online journey that you're doing, can you share maybe what's one comment or message that kind of stuck with you from someone who follows along with your journey?
We had a lot of nice ones. Yeah, I think
I'm sure
so
you've
many.
had tons.
Yeah, I have one that told me that our bodies are just vessels for our souls. I got this like a few months ago.
Hmm.
Pretty sure it's a quote I've seen online too, but it's so true. Like our bodies are literally just vessels for our souls, and I've realized that the way we look doesn't define who we are. Because I spend a lot of time on social media. I'm sure you do too. It's just our generation. It's just life right now. We all do,
Right,
and we get caught up in trying to look the best, and we think that looks are what attract other people and what make us good and our status and all that. But I've realized that it's not about that. It's really just about who you are. And that
hmm,
comment validated that feeling that I have, and it's so true. Like when I talk about my friends, I don't ever talk about the way they look. I talk about their character, and I always want to be remembered for my character, not the way I look. So that comment
yep,
was like, yeah, I like that.
yeah, no, yeah, that's a really good one. I completely agree, 100%. Like, of course, we do care about how we look, right? We want to look as good as possible, but it's so minute in comparison to who you are as a person, and how you look and who you are as a person are not necessarily going to be the same thing. Um, So yeah, completely agree. Character and resilience and mindset and mentality matter more so than all those things.
100%.
Let's see. Can you tell can you tell the audience maybe about what cancer has taught you about living fully, even without like, necessarily a cure just yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's taught me you have to do everything you can while you still can. I think that we get lazy. We're like, oh, I'm not going to go on this trip now. I'm not going to do this now because I'll have time in the future.
Hmm.
But you never know what's going to happen. And I'm not saying don't prepare for the future. I'm not saying don't do all that stuff, like don't work. But I'm saying is make sure you're doing everything you can now because you never know what can happen. You
Right,
never know when you can get a cancer diagnosis that's either terminal or you can get hit by a car. Anything can happen in life. So just don't live your life with regrets. Always end things on good terms with people because you don't want to be that person who ends a relationship badly and they pass away and you're like, oh my God, I ended it badly with them. So to me, it's
right,
just so important to always be kind to people and live your life to the fullest.
right. Like you said, it might not even be us that gets sick or passes away. It could be them. And if
Who knows?
you have that salty ending, it could haunt you for the rest of your life. Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah. And you don't want to deal with that feeling.
Right. Yeah. I'm the exact same way. It's surviving this for me has, yeah, just kind of awakened my joy and my thirst for life, I guess you could say. And I'm sure it's the
Mhm.
same with you. As soon as you get through the
Yeah.
GVHD, you're gonna be out on the waves. I know you've done it a few times though, right?
Yeah. I've been able to, but now that I have the treatment, I have to be a little more careful. I have to wait. Like I might not be able to do it for a few months, but I'll be back
Yeah.
in a few months once the
Yeah.
treatment gets less. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's really good to hear. Um, so I just really have one more question for you, and it's uh, in relation to other people. Like what would you tell someone who's kind of in the thick of their pain right now, who doesn't see a way out, who's kind of feeling like how you had felt when you're kind of at the lowest moment? What would be your message to somebody like that?
Yeah, I think it's just you can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but the light is there. There were so many times when I couldn't see that light, I couldn't see a way out, but just by staying where I am and continuing on and continuing to go through that tunnel, the light came and the light was there and I saw it.
Yeah.
When we're in that deep, dark mind where we're depressed and nothing seems to be going our way, we can't see a way out. It's impossible. But if you just keep going, like you'll get to a better place. It's just about pushing forward, even though it's so difficult and it's so tiring, but
Mhm.
you just never know what's on the other side of life. So just keep going forward.
That's a beautiful message, and it's so true. I can attest to that. I literally said it on another episode that I recorded with
Yeah,
someone who's also currently going through treatment as well. And I think you used almost the exact same analogy where it's like, there feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, but it's there. You just got to keep going, keep chugging along. You're going to get there. You will be able to climb out of it. As long as you're alive, you have a chance to continue to
right.
live and to change things.
100%.
So really, man, thank you again. That's really all the questions that I
Well, thank
had
you.
for you. But I wanted to know if you had any. I mean, you can share your social media handles, and we'll put them up on screen. Or if you have any other projects going on, anything you want to share.
Yeah, just Instagram is Michael Reid Cramer, MichaelReidCramer. TikTok is Yeah I Surf or Michael Reid Cramer. I think it's the same. Yeah,
Okay.
those are my main channels. And if you just want to give me a follow, my mom and I have a podcast, Michael and Mom Talk Cancer. So check it out and thank you guys.
Yeah, you guys make sure to check it out. And just as an outro, I just want to say that Michael, again, he reminds us that fighting doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like vulnerability, honesty, and just showing up. So if this story moved you, make sure you comment, share, and just check out Michael's journey. We're going to put the tags up for everybody to see. So just remember, you're not alone. And this is Trauma Saved My Life. Thank you guys for joining us.